3,000 meters below the surface, where sunlight died hours ago, something is moving through the darkness. It's massive, longer than a school bus, and it's hunting. This is the giant squid, an animal so large it shouldn't be possible. Arms studded with suckers the size of dinner plates, each one ringed with razor-sharp hooks. Eyes bigger than basketballs, the largest in the animal kingdom, designed to detect the faintest flicker of bioluminescence in absolute darkness. And here's the thing that should stop you cold. This isn't a whale, it's not a shark, it's an invertebrate. A creature with no bones, no rigid structure, just soft tissue and muscle. And yet, it's one of the biggest predators in the ocean. But the giant squid isn't alone down there. The deep sea is full of giants, spider crabs with leg spans wider than cars, isopods the size of house cats, jellyfish with tentacles stretching over 30 meters, amphipods, normally the size of a fingernail, growing longer than a human hand. For over a century, scientists have known about these creatures, but no one could explain why they were so big. Because up here at the surface, the rules are different. Animals have size limits. Insects stay small because of oxygen diffusion. Birds are constrained by flight mechanics. Even land mammals hit a ceiling where bones can't support more weight. But in the deep sea, those rules seem to break. And the question that's haunted marine biologists for decades is simple. Why? What is it about the deep ocean that turns normal-sized animals into giants? The answer isn't what you think. For most of history, we assumed the deep sea was empty, a barren wasteland where nothing could survive. The logic seemed sound. No sunlight means no photosynthesis. No photosynthesis means no plants. No plants means no food chain. Therefore, no life. But then, in 1864, a Norwegian zoologist named Michael Sars hauled up a strange flower-like animal from over 800 meters deep. It was a sea lily, a type of crinoid, and it was alive. The discovery shattered the assumption. Life existed in the deep, and not just bacteria. Complex animals, expeditions followed. The HMS Challenger voyage in the 1870s dredged up hundreds of species from depths previously thought lifeless. And many of them were enormous, giant sea spiders, massive sponges, crustaceans far larger than their shallow water relatives. Scientists started calling it deep sea gigantism, but naming something isn't the same as understanding it. The first hypothesis was temperature. Cold water slows metabolism. Slower metabolism means slower aging. Slower aging could mean more time to grow. It made sense. The deep sea is cold. Most zones hover between 2 and 4 degrees Celsius, just above freezing. But then researchers found a problem. Not all cold environments produce giants. Arctic waters are freezing. Antarctic seas are even colder. Yet most animals there are normal-sized or even smaller than their temperate cousins. So, temperature alone couldn't explain it. The second hypothesis was oxygen. Deep seawater is often oxygen-rich. It's cold, and cold water holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water. Maybe, scientists thought, higher oxygen levels allowed animals to grow larger. But again, the data didn't fit. Some oxygen-rich environments have small animals. Some oxygen-poor zones have giants. Oxygen mattered, but it wasn't the answer. Then came the third idea, pressure. The deep sea is a crushing environment. At 3,000 meters, the pressure is roughly 300 times what we experience at the surface. Enough to implode a submarine. Enough to compress air pockets into nothing. Maybe, the thinking went, larger bodies helped animals withstand that pressure. More mass, more structural support. But this didn't hold up either. Many deep-sea giants are soft-bodied, no rigid skeletons, no hard shells, just gelatinous tissue that offers no resistance to pressure whatsoever. Pressure wasn't the driver. By the early 2000s, scientists had ruled out temperature, oxygen, and pressure as primary causes. And yet, deep-sea gigantism was undeniable. So what was left? The answer, it turns out, was hidden in something far more fundamental: metabolism. Not just how fast it runs, but how efficiently it can be sustained in an environment where food is almost non-existent. Because here's what makes the deep sea different from every other habitat on Earth. There is almost no food. At the surface, sunlight drives photosynthesis, plankton blooms, fish swarm, predators thrive. Energy flows constantly through the ecosystem. But below 200 meters, sunlight fades. Below 1,000 meters, it's gone completely. No light means no photosynthesis. No photosynthesis means no primary producers. No base of the food chain. So how does anything eat? The answer is called marine snow. It's not snow, it's a slow, constant rain of organic particles drifting down from the surface. Dead plankton, fecal pellets, fragments of larger animals, mucus webs cast off by jellyfish. It falls through the water column like a blizzard in slow motion. And for most deep-sea creatures, this is the only food source. But here's the problem. Marine snow is sparse, unpredictable, nutrient-poor. A single particle might take weeks to fall from the surface to the abyss. And by the time it gets there, most of the energy has been consumed by scavengers higher up. So deep-sea animals live in a state of near constant starvation. And that changes everything. In environments where food is scarce, evolution favors efficiency. Animals that waste less energy survive longer. Animals that can go months without eating outlast their competitors. And one of the best ways to become efficient is to grow large. This is called Kleiber's Law. It's a principle in biology that describes how metabolic rate scales with body size. And it's one of the most important concepts for understanding deep-sea gigantism. Here's how it works. Metabolism doesn't scale linearly with size. A mouse doesn't use twice as much energy as a mouse half its size. It uses less than twice. This is because larger animals have a lower surface area to volume ratio. They lose heat more slowly. They need less food per unit of body mass to maintain themselves. A mouse burns through calories at a frantic pace. It needs to eat constantly just to stay warm. An elephant, by contrast, has a much slower metabolism relative to its size. It can go longer between meals. In the deep sea, where meals are rare, this becomes a survival advantage. A giant isopod can survive for years without eating, literally years. There are documented cases of captive giant isopods refusing food for over 5 years and showing no signs of starvation. A smaller isopod couldn't do that. Its metabolism would burn through reserves too quickly. So in the deep sea, being big isn't just an advantage, it's a strategy. It allows animals to wait, to endure, to outlast the gaps between meals. But size alone doesn't explain everything. Because some deep-sea creatures aren't just big, they're weirdly proportioned. Giant squid have eyes far larger than any other animal. Japanese spider crabs have legs that stretch for meters, but bodies the size of basketballs. Deep-sea amphipods have disproportionately thick shells. And that's where the second piece of the puzzle comes in: predation, or rather, the lack of it. In the deep sea, predators are rare, not because they don't exist, but because they're spread out over enormous distances. A sperm whale might hunt giant squid, but sperm whales don't patrol the deep sea like sharks patrol reefs. They dive, hunt for an hour, then return to the surface. Most of the time, deep sea animals are alone. And when predators are scarce, the evolutionary pressure to stay small disappears. On land, being small helps you hide. In shallow water, being small helps you escape. But in the deep sea, there's nowhere to hide. The environment is three-dimensional, featureless, and vast. So instead of evolving to be fast or agile, many deep-sea creatures evolved to be large and intimidating. A giant isopod has few natural predators, not because it's fast, not because it's venomous, but because it's simply too big for most deep-sea hunters to bother with. The same goes for giant amphipods, giant sea spiders, and giant jellyfish. Size becomes armor. But there's a third factor, one that's even stranger: longevity. Deep-sea animals live a long time, far longer than their shallow water relatives. The Greenland shark, which dwells in deep Arctic waters, can live over 400 years. Some deep-sea sponges are estimated to be thousands of years old. And when you live that long, you have time to grow. Most animals stop growing once they reach sexual maturity, but many deep-sea creatures exhibit indeterminate growth. They never stop growing. They just grow more slowly as they age. Over decades, even centuries, that slow growth adds up. A deep-sea isopod might only grow a few millimeters per year, but over 50 years, that's a massive animal. So deep-sea gigantism isn't caused by one thing, it's caused by a combination. Slow metabolism allows animals to survive on almost no food. Lack of predators removes the evolutionary pressure to stay small. Extreme longevity gives animals time to grow far beyond what their shallow water relatives ever could. And there's one more factor scientists are only beginning to understand: oxygen minimum zones. In certain parts of the deep sea, oxygen levels drop to nearly zero. These zones, called OMZs, are expanding due to climate change. And in these zones, something strange happens. Some animals shrink, others grow larger. The ones that grow larger are often species that can tolerate low oxygen by slowing their metabolism even further. And the slower the metabolism, the more energy efficient the animal becomes. And the more energy efficient, the larger it can afford to grow. It's a feedback loop, and it's creating some of the strangest giants in the ocean. But here's the twist: deep sea gigantism might be temporary. Because the deep sea is changing, human activity is altering the chemistry of the ocean. Carbon dioxide is dissolving into seawater, making it more acidic. Temperature is rising, even at depth. Oxygen levels are dropping in some regions. And for creatures that have spent millions of years adapting to a stable, cold, high-oxygen environment, these changes are catastrophic. Giant isopods are being found in shallower waters than ever before, possibly fleeing oxygen-depleted zones. Giant squid strandings are increasing. Scientists aren't sure why, but some think it's related to disruptions in their prey distribution. Even the giant tube worms that cluster around hydrothermal vents, creatures that have survived for millions of years, are showing signs of stress. The deep sea isn't isolated. It's connected to the rest of the ocean. And when the surface changes, the deep changes too. So the giants of the deep, the creatures that shouldn't exist, that defied every expectation we had about size and survival, may not last. Not because they're weak, but because the world they evolved for is disappearing. And that's the real answer to why deep-sea creatures grow so big.